Well, thank you very much. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. I sure appreciate it. Well, my name is Michael Manring, and I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about my strange, wanky world of bass playing. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you guys, is I'd like to play a bunch of my tunes for you, and I'll talk a little bit about each one, and I'll try to save time at the end for any questions you might have, and do stick around for the end, because I think we do have some deluxe prizes to give away.
I knew I'd forget something.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if there's any hyper basses to give away, but something good. And Gary Hoey and Myron Grumbach are also guys I'm on the road with. Promised they'd come by, and so after that little soiree, we will jam, as they say in the business.
Yeah, Paul.
You know, it's funny. Funny getting to the point in your career where you do these kind of things, because you have to think about how to talk about music. I think it was Stravinsky that said talking about music is like dancing about architecture. And there's I think it's kind of true, because I've been playing for a really long time, and you kind of spend all your time working with the music, and you don't, at least for me, I don't kind of process it in a verbal way anymore. It's just sort of what I do. So having to think about how to explain it all is kind of an interesting challenge. So when I first started doing this stuff, I tried to think about what kinds of coherent statements I could make about why in the heck I do these unnatural things to the bass and stuff like that. And I guess what I came up with is, I guess I'd say that that my style has really grown out of a desire to draw as many of the different colors out of the bass as I can. The thing that's always fascinated me about this instrument is the sound of it. I started playing bass when I was about 10 years old, because I first heard the bass on TV. There was a TV show that was on every week that part of the theme music had a little bit of bass playing by itself. And I never liked that show, but I sure liked listening to the bass. And so I asked my mom, "What's that instrument? I gotta play that. It's such a great sound." And she said, "I don't know, I think it's an organ." So I had a couple of years of piano lessons. But it wasn't too long before I figured out that it was not an organ, but in fact a bass guitar. And I've been hooked ever since. But it was really the sound that appealed to me the most. I was willing to play the organ if it was in fact an organ that made that sound. But it was a bass. And it just seemed to me that the sound of this instrument is so rich and so complex. It seemed to me that this instrument is capable of producing such a wide range of emotions and expression. And that's what's fascinated me about it all the years I've been playing, is trying to find those little secret ways of drawing out of this instrument all to me, the passion that's already in there. And really that's really what my style is all about. It's been about trying to find those mysterious sounds. So because of that, I spent a lot of time trying weird stuff on the bass, goofing around with lots of weird ideas and stuff. We'll talk about a lot of that tonight. It's kind of fun playing the bass because it really is such a new instrument. It's always a feeling that it's a wide open frontier and anything can happen with it. And I don't think anybody really knows where it will be in 20, 30 years, or 40 years, or 100 years. So the technique we'll probably talk most about tonight is altered tunings. At least that's the one I seem to get the most questions about these days. I guess y'all have already heard everything you can stand about tapping and slapping and other techniques of those kinds. I use lots of altered tunings in my music. In fact, pretty much every tune I'm going to play for you tonight is in a different altered tuning. Almost every one is in a different tuning. Some tunes involve more than one tuning, but we'll get to that later. Altered tunings have been really a great source of inspiration and ideas for me. It's really been something I got hooked on altered tunings and just was fascinated by them. There's one great disadvantage to using altered tunings, and that's when you first start working with a new altered tuning, you don't have any idea where the heck you are, and you can't even play a major scale without it sounding like some kind of bizarre Slanimsky exercise or something. But there are several advantages to using altered tunings, and the primary one is what I was just talking about. It's a way of pulling out some of the color that's part of this instrument, in my opinion. It's a way of getting some new sounds and new expression out of the instrument. And there are several ways that happens. First, you get a new sound with the open strings. When you change tuning of the string, you get a new color to that string. I was just listening a lot to this last Tool record, Undertow, and I noticed for the whole record they're tuned down to D. All the guitars are tuned down a whole step. And I'm pretty sure they did that just because that's so dark, that sound. When the strings are tuned down that low, you get that darkness. And if you tune a string real high, it's sort of the opposite. It's bright and kind of twangy. Second thing you get the set of new sounds you get new sets of harmonics to work with. I love harmonics. Harmonics is such an incredibly valuable tool to have, especially as a soloist, because there's so many things they offer. Extend your range beyond any notes on the fingerboard, and they can ring on while you play other stuff around them. They're great for fretless because you can use them to help your intonation. So it's just a great thing to have, harmonics, but some harmonics are just stronger and easier to play than others. So I kept getting tired of hearing the same old harmonics over and over, not only from myself, but from all of us. We sort of seem to kind of stick to those same set of harmonics over and over. If you change the tuning in the bass, you get whole new sets of harmonics to work with, and you already know how to play them too. So that's another area that's really opened up. And finally, the third thing that's really opened up with altered tunings is intervals. When you work with a different tuning, it really kind of opens up your mind to the kind of intervals that you're using. Because when you think about it, the sound that we normally associate with bass is very much tied into the sound of the tuning. You know, when you think about like slap, everyone always complains about how all slap sounds the same. Everybody slaps in the key of E minor, and that's because the bass is tuned that way. If the bass were tuned different, then slap would sound a lot different. Same, I think, is true of chords. Because the bass is tuned perfect fourths apart, we all kind of tend to use the same kind of chord voicings. But if you can imagine a bass tuned like minor seconds apart, it would make you would have to play different kinds of chords. So it really, using different tunings really opens up your head a little bit, I think, in terms of intervals. I think it also helps your melodic playing, because I find sometimes I tend to play different kind of melodies when using altered tuning. And the thing that's really cool to me about altered tunings is they don't really require that much physical exertion. When I was in my early 20s, I figured that in order to get new sounds and to pull new things out of the bass, I had to do stuff that was really hard. I had to, do stuff that was harder than anything that had been done before. So I wrote all these pieces with like really complex tap and thumb positions and all this crazy stuff. And I practiced and practiced and practiced for months. And some of them I actually got so I could play, but I realized after a while that they really weren't any fun, because it was just so hard to deal with just the physical nature of them. Just playing the piece with some semblance of a groove and basically in tune. But there was no room left over in my brain for expression, for dynamics, for articulation, for tone, for phrasing. And these are the things that matter to me most about music. So this was a really important point for me, because I realized that really I wasn't going about it the right way. Well, altered tunings are a little different. I can play a chord in this tuning, for instance, that I can play with one finger. It would probably take all my fingers in standard tuning. If I was going to try to play that in standard tuning, it would probably take all my fingers, but in this tuning it only takes one finger. So it just leaves a lot of room for me to think about the other aspects of the music, the more expressive elements of the music. And that's what's most important to me. And I think from that point I realized that, to me, I think creativity is not really so much about doing something difficult as it is about trying to look at something in a new way. And I think it's often something that's obvious, something that's sort of right under your nose. But it's just being able to look at it in a new way, have a new perspective on it, and perceive things in a new light. And the other thing that's really always appealed to me about altered tunings is they're extremely cheap. I've never really made that much money, and so whenever I had that irresistible craving for the latest cool effects unit or 27-string bass, I usually couldn't afford it, so I just went home and changed the tuning of my bass and got a whole new world to work with. So if you're interested in goofing around with altered tunings, actually, even if you're really not that interested in altered tunings, I'd kind of encourage you to at least give them a try, even if this is something you don't think you'd be working with, because there's so many thousands of tunings that you can get a bass into. There's literally thousands and thousands. It just seems like such a shame for all of us all the time to only ever use just one tune. But if you find it's something you want to goof with a lot, you might look into an instrument with a graphite neck, or you can do a lot of alto tunings with instruments with wooden necks, but please go back to standard tuning when you're done playing your bass, when you put your bass down for the night. I hate to have to buy your bass from. So this tuning that I'm in right now is actually very simple alto tuning. All I've done is I've taken my A string and tuned it up a whole step to B. I've taken my G string and done the same thing, tuned it up a whole step to A. So instead of E, A, D, G, I now have E, B, D, A. And I think, even though that's not very radical detuning, I think you can already hear how the bass sort of has a new personality to it, sort of a new set of almost vocabulary that it wants to use to speak. So I'd like to play a tune for you in this tuning. This is from my last record, Drastic Measures, and it's called Red Right Returning. instrument. Well, before we go too far tonight, there is a subject I'd like to talk a little bit about. It's actually kind of a little off track, but it's something that's really important to me, so I'd like to go into it a little bit. As I mentioned, mostly tonight we're going to be talking about unusual stuff to do with the bass and weirdo kinds of ideas. And it'd be great if I could kind of encourage you to kind of open up your image of the bass or whatever instrument you play a little bit, and maybe feel like you could try out some new and different ideas. That would be great. But I guess what needs to be said is, at the same time, I don't want you to think of those things as a replacement for more conventional kinds of bass playing. Please don't stop working on the groove and working on locking in with the drummer and being a great rhythm section player. Because to me, that's where everything comes from. Personally, I learned about music from playing in bands and from being a member of the rhythm section and backing up other musicians. And that's really how I learned about music. When you think about the kinds of skills that you learn by being a rhythm section musician, by playing conventional bass, above all, you learn groove, you learn restraint, because every bass player knows what it's like when you play in a band. Everybody's playing a lot of notes, so there's really only room for you to play one note in the next bar. But man, you're going to make it the right note, and you're going to play it exactly the right volume, just the right tone. You're going to hold it just the right length of time. You learn listening as a bass player, because you can't really be an effective bass player without really being as aware as possible of everything that's going on around you and being able to react to it. And you learn really how to kind of make music work from the ground up, how to make the form of a piece work kind of from the bottom. So those kinds of skills, to me, are like some of the most important musical skills there are. And I think bass players, kind of tend to think little of themselves as soloists, because we tend not to be as fancy and flashy as guitar players and saxophonists and violinists. But we have all these other skills that we've learned from playing in a rhythm section. And I think that those kinds of things make us better soloists than we think we are. So I would love it if I could encourage you to kind of open up your conception of the bass, but please don't stop thinking of it also as everything that it has been in the past. And in fact, personally, I would think it would be great if we didn't even perceive there being a particular dichotomy in bass playing between groove playing and solo playing, or between straightforward playing and weirdo playing. Because to me, the thing that's important about this instrument is that it is all that. This is such a great groove instrument. It's really such a great supportive instrument. And it's also such a great melodic instrument, such a great rhythmic instrument, and such a great solo instrument. It is all that. And I think by conceiving of it as any one thing, as any one bit of that, whether it's, very conventional or very outside, I think we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to the instrument, because the instrument is all of those things. And I think the instrument's ultimately a lot more than that as well, a lot of things that haven't been discovered yet. So the only real limits are in our imagination. Anyway, that's my little tirade, and that makes some kind of sense. Thanks for putting up with it. So we were talking about altered tunings. I got pretty quickly to the point where in my solo shows I was playing, like tonight, almost every piece in a different tuning. Because, each tuning sort of has its own personality, so it's really great to have that kind of variety, be able to change tuning and get this whole new sort of universe to deal with. But I realized after a while that, again, my interest is really in exploring all the different kind of colors from the bass that I can get out of it. I realized I wasn't using a lot of my standard tuning skills in my solo shows. So every once in a while I like to just go back to standard tuning on a fretted bass and play a standard. This is called Mercy, Mercy, Mercy by the great Joseph Zawinul. Well, I'd like to move now from the world of the somewhat normal to the world of the totally bizarre. This is the Zahn Michael Manring Hyperbass. And in addition to being an ego gratification device, it's a really weird bass. Actually, it's kind of a long story, and I won't go into the whole thing, but I've done like whole clinics just about this bass, a lot of stuff. In fact, when Joe Zahn and I designed this bass, we kind of put all the weird stuff that we thought we could get away with on one instrument, put it on here. Sort of a kitchen sink kind of concept. But I won't bore you with all the details. But we'll just talk about one of its capabilities, and that's its instant detuning abilities. As I mentioned, I got pretty quick to the point where I was playing in all these different altered tunings, and it's so cool to have a different tuning for each piece, because each piece sort of has its own world to work with. And so I figured the next step would be to not only change tuning between each piece, but actually change tuning within a piece, so that the A section would have its own sort of world, and the B section would be kind of over here someplace. And I started dealing with this just by cranking the keys while I was playing. And I got pretty good at it. I still do a little of that from time to time. But I really wanted to be able to, doing that's kind of slow, and I also wanted to be able to change the whole tuning of the bass real quickly. And so I talked to Joe Zahn about this, and he was the only person I ever mentioned this to that didn't think I should instantly be committed. And so we talked about it for a while and basically came up with this system, this detuning system, which it's like a double detuning system, comes in two parts. The first part is up here at the headstock. These are hip shot detuners, and they're fairly stock head-on device. They're designed to be put on your low string, on your E string, and the tuning key sits on a little plate. When you flip this lever out, the tuning key tilts. I don't know if you can see that. The whole key tilts and drops the pitch down. So you put it on your E string and you can drop it down to D or C or even B on a good day. So what Joe did is he took two right-handed ones and two left-handed ones and put one on each string. So I can detune each string separately from the headstock here. And the second part of the tuning system is here at the bridge. This is a really weird bridge. Basically, the strings sit on these little sort of trays, and underneath the bridge there are two cams. They're operated by these levers. And when you move the lever, you turn the cam, and the trays can move up and down at pre-specified amounts. Basically, what happens is the bridge is designed to give you 3 different tunings of the whole bass, so you have access to a complete retuning just by moving one lever. And the bridge is pretty amazing, but there is a limitation to it, and that's that the tunings of the bridge have to be sequential. They have to be, basically you have a high tuning, a medium tuning, and a low tuning. And as you're moving between tunings, you can actually have some strings stay the same pitch. So let's say you're moving from the high tuning to the medium tuning. You can have some strings move down in pitch, and some strings stay the same pitch. But you can't have one string go up while the other one's going down. But that's one of the real beauties of this dually tuning system, is you can do contrary motion detunings. I can be going up with my left hand as I'm going down with my right. And I like that sound so much that just about the first piece I wrote when I got this bass used that kind of harmonic movement as a major thematic element of the piece. I'd like to play that for you. But first, I'd like to play another piece that's unfortunately another really long story. I'll try to shorten it though. This piece involves the use of the EBow, which is this little black box. The EBow is really cool. I never go any place without my EBow. The EBow is a little electromagnet. That's all it is. In fact, it's mostly just a 9-volt battery. On the foot of the EBow, there's this little channel here where all the electromagnetic energy is concentrated. And what you do is you hold the string in that little channel without touching the EBow to the string. And you can get the instrument to sustain as long as you like. And alternatively, you can actually start the string vibrating with the EBow, and it gives you a much softer attack than any kind of pizzicato you could do. So the EBow is really EBow is an indispensable tool. And a lot of people have told me have tried the EBow on their bass and had a lot of trouble with it. I should mention that it's really it's important not to think of it as an effect that you just turn on or off, something like that. But it's really sort of part of the instrument, I feel, and it's very, very sensitive, and you have to really work with it a lot to get it happening the way it can really happen. But it's something very cool. And I use the EBow an awful lot. I usually always have one nearby, especially when I'm playing with other people. But I noticed I wasn't using the EBow that much in my solo shows because it tends to be kind of monophonic, or just kind of tends to do one note at a time. And I thought that's kind of too bad. I really would like it to be polyphonic. So I figured out how to use 2 EBows at the same time. So this is a piece from my new record. This is entitled Adhan, which is an Arabic word that means the call to prayer in the Muslim world.
Then it's gotta be like a 32 fret bass, because it ain't.
Well, one of the ways I really like to come up with new ideas and new sounds is by trying to combine different ideas and different techniques. It's kind of fun to take two different ideas that may not first really go together and smash them together and see what happens. Well, I have three main basses. These three I brought with me here tonight. And I use these about 90% of the time. People often ask me why three, and the reason is because that's as many as the airlines will let me bring. And you might have noticed all these basses are a little bit different. This guy over here is my main fretless, and it's the one I use most when I play with other people. It's just a real great, straightforward fretless. It's great for playing melodic stuff and for doing jazz kind of stuff. And played a lot of folk records using that bass. And then this is my main fretted bass over here, and that's it's actually just a pretty normal bass, just been cut down so it's easier to travel with. And on the fretted bass, I find I do more percussive stuff or anything that uses a lot of really complex tapping or really tricky chords and stuff. I usually do on the fretted bass. And the hyper bass I use for all the really weird alter tuning stuff and detuning. Junk like that. You might have noticed that all these basses actually are set up a little differently. They all have different kinds of pickups in different places and different electronics and everything. I know a lot of people try to get a couple instruments and get a fretless and a fretted bass that are identical and sound exactly the same. I studied from Jaco Pastorius, and he always told me that's what you should do, but of course I didn't follow his very sound advice. It seemed like no matter what bass I picked up, I always sounded like me. I wanted to sound like Jaco, but I always sounded like me, so I finally just gave up and realized that I was going to sound like me no matter what. And so I try to make my basses as different as I can because I'm looking for, again, a lot of variety, to get all the colors that I can out of the instrument. When people hear you're going to play a 90-minute concert of solo bass, they're really afraid the whole thing's going to sound like. That's all it's going to be for 90 minutes. So always looking for ways to kind of try to get some different sounds. And so on all my instruments, I try to make them sound a little different. And I've gotten to the point actually where I play them differently. There are techniques I find I use on one bass that I won't even use on another bass or rarely at all. Like I do almost all my slap stuff on the fretted, but hardly ever play harmonics on the fretted bass just because doesn't really sound good. Sometimes I do. And so all my instruments are kind of like that. I kind of adapt my hands a little bit when I'm playing them, and it's like a little bit different thing for each one. And so I actually try to use the techniques that I've learned on one bass to kind of teach myself how to play the other basses. I figured if I learned how to do it on one bass, maybe I could learn how to do it on the other. And so this next piece I'd like to play for you is kind of an attempt to combine kind of the slap stuff that I had worked on the fretted bass and some of the melodic and blowing stuff I had worked on the fretless, and put it all on the hyper bass and use a little bit of detuning and some of its harmonics and stuff. also on the new record, and it's entitled "The Monkey Businessman." Well, I should probably tell you a little bit about my new record. Got a new record out. It's called Funk. It was really fun to do this record, actually. I had a really good time. Because might just be the world's first ever new age thrash fusion record. And I got some of my friends to play with me. Steve Morse plays guitar on it, and Alex Skolnick plays some guitar on there, and Steve Smith, the drummer from Journey and Vital Information, plays some drums with me, and Herb and Primus plays drums too. So it really is sort of a new age thrash record, and it really was fun. The whole thing was produced by John Cunabary, who's Joe Satriani's producer. So, and Phil Albert played on it too, a pianist who's played with Peter Gabriel and a bunch of other people. Well, now it's time for something truly unusual. I was talking about how I try to use my techniques I learned on one bass to inspire my playing on the other bass. So one day I was playing this fretted and playing a lick on that, and I was going to try to play it on this hyper bass, and kept going back and forth. And so at that time I wrote a piece on my last record. It's called Watson and Crick. And I've been lucky enough to perform it really sort of all over the world in the last 5 years or so. And it's really fun to play. I have a good time playing it, but it seems like just about after every other show, no matter where I am, it's always some bozo comes up to me after the show and says, "So, when are you going to play 3 basses at the same time?" It's a new chord. This is Mel Parsons, my illustrious tech. It's great. I never had a tech before. Well, Mel is in search of a speaker chord, or a chord that isn't a speaker chord. What else can I tell you about that new record? Actually, any questions so far?
Is it on CD?
Yes. Yeah, I guess I'm supposed to say CD, right? To me, they're still records because it's a recording. I guess I'm not really with the 90s yet. So people really did keep asking me when I was going to play 3 basses at the same time. I finally figured I wasn't going to get away without doing it. So I wrote this piece, and it's entitled My 3 Moons. Sorry about the pun there. Actually, I dedicated this piece to Rosalind Franklin. Watson and Crick, the piece I wrote on 2 basses, is those are the names of the 2 biochemists who discovered the double helix shape of the DNA molecule. Always wanted to be a science nerd. I always thought it was kind of cool, you know, that it took 2 scientists to discover the double helix shape. So they weren't sure if it was going to be a double helix or a triple helix. Turned out it was a double helix. And I was playing one night in Maine, Blue Hill, Maine, and a woman came to me after the show, told me that there was a woman biochemist by the name of Rosalind Franklin who had apparently participated rather heavily in research that Watson and Crick were involved in and never got the credit for a lot of political reasons. And so I started feeling lots of New Age male guilt. So I dedicate this piece to her because she, Watson and Crick actually won the Nobel Prize in biochemistry, and she never got to share in that before she died. Never really got the recognition she deserved. Last thing she probably wanted was a bass solo named after her, but she's stuck with it now. Any other questions? Yes.
Why do you play this brand?
Oh, why do I play this brand of bass? The Zahn bass. Because I know the guy that makes them, and he listens to my weird ideas. Joe Zahn lives pretty close to me. I live in California, and he lives pretty close to me, and we hang out a lot and talk about weird bass stuff, and try to come up with different kinds of designs and stuff. And then he builds them. He really does the hard part. I just sit around going, hey, it'd be really cool if we had a bass that did this, and then he has to figure out how to do it. So he does the really hard work. Got one now? Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Notice all of your basses have 4 strings on them. Have you played other string basses?
Yeah, I have at home I have a 5-string bass, and I have a 6-string bass, and I have a 10-string bass. They're all great. I really like them a lot. It seems like I play these probably the most. It's probably the airline thing again. But I don't know, the guy in, y'all know Morphine, the band Morphine? This guy named Mark Salmon who plays bass, plays 2-string bass in Morphine. And he insists that what we really should be doing is taking strings off the bass. He might be right about that, I don't know. It is important to know that having more of something isn't necessarily better. Mel Parsons, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, my arms aren't long enough to strap on 3 of these babies at the same time, so I will request a volunteer in the audience to hold.
Wait.
Jared.
We have a volunteer already.
I'm not sure.
This is John, ladies and gentlemen. Human guitar stand. Sort of the Vanna White of New Age music. Sorry. So John and I are going to attempt this for you now. Again, this is called My 3 Moons, and hope you like it, because it's really hard to play. It goes on.